Welcome to Animation Hustle, the place where we dive into the funny and untold stories behind your favorite animated movies and TV shows. Be sure to subscribe and hit up the Discord because today we're going behind the scenes at DreamWorks. These are some of my favorites behind the scenes stories that show just how crazy and chaotic making a DreamWorks animated movie can be. And stick around towards the end because one DreamWorks artist gives great advice to aspiring animators and also absolutely roasts the company. It's amazing. These are all the DreamWorks related videos I posted over the last year. As you'll see, the style of my videos changed a lot, but I think the stories are always really cool. In the comments below, let me know what your favorite DreamWorks movie is. Let's get into it. This Shrek scene is iconic, but was almost impossible to make. The animators struggled for years before changing one tiny detail that allowed them to finish the scene. When the first Shrek came out, CGI animation was still super new. The technology was very unreliable. One wrong click of the mouse, and this would turn into this, or this. But that didn't stop DreamWorks. They were determined to push things to the limits. Liquids were hard to do, but they did scenes like this. Clothes were hard to do, but they had characters dressed like this. The one thing they struggled with was hair. Hair was really hard. But Fiona's hair was impossible. They spent a year trying to perfect her long, flowy hair, but it was just too complicated. So they got a new idea. Change the hair. Instead of trying to recreate millions of individual hairs, they gave Fiona her iconic ponytail, which fit her personality and was also made of a few simple shapes in the computer. By Shrek 4, technology advanced and Fiona was able to let her hair down. This viral Billie Eilish interview inspired DreamWorks animators in the most unexpected way. So animators aren't like normal people. They think differently. Anything can inspire them. They can look at Tom Cruise and use him as inspiration for Aladdin. Or they can study the movements of cats, dogs, wallabies, panthers, and bats and make a dragon. Or they can get inspired to make a quirky princess by copying another quirky princess. Sorry about that, please subscribe. So when animators were creating these characters for Trolls, they were inspired by tons of different things. But in this scene, they used Billie Eilish as an inspiration.
We were studying Billie Eilish, and we noticed that she never sat in her chair normally. And I was like, there's something, I don't know, kind of cool about that.
DreamWorks animators really struggled to make this beard.
Stoic's beard is the most challenging beard we have ever done here at the studio.
When you see how hilariously bad things could have turned out, you'll understand why getting this little detail right was so important. Alright, let's go back. So the How to Train Your Dragon movies are known for dragons, but can we take a second to appreciate the glorious, majestic, and luscious beards? They look great, but they cause a lot of problems. As we know, the best characters are always bald, and that's because in CGI, hair is the hardest thing to do. It's always funny to see how animators over the years have struggled with it. At Disney, at Pixar, everywhere. It's hard. So when they were making dragons, they knew it would be a huge challenge. One of the main characters' beard was especially challenging, but they had to figure it out.
With Stoic, we wanted to make sure that he looked impressive. That beard is certainly part of giving him that authority.
To pull it off, they developed a whole new technology called Smoosh, and one guy ended up programming it all.
Sean Nolan was the one that did the rigging on the beard, and he worked for months on this.
It's crazy how so much work goes into such tiny details, but they figured it out. And I'm glad they did, because Stoic without his beard would have looked weird. Remember Madagascar? Well, I found the original character designs, and I can't tell if they're hilarious or cursed. I'm just glad they changed it. When you make an animated movie, it takes time to get the characters to look right. Shrek started like this, Stitch started like this, and Jasmine looked like this. As time goes on, the artist will often try to make the characters look like the actor who is voicing them. And normally it works, but for Madagascar, the results were interesting. So they decided on the character designs for Marty, Alex, and whatever the giraffe's name was, way before the actors were cast. But for Gloria the hippo, they changed her depending on who was in talks to play her. And they had a bunch of different actresses in mind, like her or her. But when they added J-Lo's features, things got weird. And only the production designer, Kendall Cronkite, thought so.
Originally, she was J-Lo, and her design, we had a huge butt on her. We did, but you know, when she turned around, her tail was here, which means that half of her body was like a butt crack. It was unbelievable. So everybody else seemed to be fine, but I couldn't live with it. We had to change it.
This guy is the most unlucky animator at DreamWorks. Here's the hilarious story of how even though he works hard on his scenes, you never actually see his animation for one simple reason.
We spent a lot of time on this shot. When the creature comes out, the screen right eye needs to be clear that he actually looks at Drago. But this shot was difficult to do because it was very busy. I spent probably about 2 weeks just back and forth just to make sure all the timing is there. And then you send that shot to the effects department, and that's what came back. This is another example. What I wanted to do here is really put some jiggle in that jaw. I wanted to show, wait, this thing is really huge. Send it to the effects department, comes back looking like this. The next one is my magnum opus. Spent 2 weeks on this. So I actually 2D the effects, so the effects department can follow this. Get all the little jiggle in him, make sure all the dragons shooting at him, it's selling all the impact. So happy with the shot, how it was coming along. Comes back like this. I'm going to write a book about how I've been screwed by the effects department.
Do you remember when DreamWorks invented a new animation style? Because back in the day, CGI animation was a struggle. It's not like now, where everything they make looks amazing. Yes, even this, I don't care what anyone says, the animation was dope. With early CGI, water, hair, and even people were constantly messing up. So DreamWorks developed tons of new technology to make their movies as realistic as possible. And it was working, until they ran into a huge problem. They had to make a movie that wasn't realistic at all. They wanted to do something like this, but in CGI. But making cartoony animation was not possible.
Back in that day, with 3D character, if we squashed and stretched and pulled those characters around, that it would look really weird, like their bones were breaking.
So it was a disaster. But their solution was to break all the rules and invent a groundbreaking new animation system.
But we had no idea, really, if it was going to work or not. And really what they came up with was a series of rubber bands so that they can squash and stretch in all kinds of crazy ways, and it doesn't break the rig.
But the best part is someone invented a new technology to move the characters' tongues, which allowed them to do stuff like this. DreamWorks animators had a huge problem. They had no time and no money, but they had to entirely redesign Toothless. And you never noticed. But why? This is the legendary story of the greatest glow-up of all time. Making How to Train Your Dragon was a struggle, and apparently the biggest problem with the movie was Toothless. They spent millions of dollars animating him before they realized they made a huge mistake.
The crew at DreamWorks had been working on this movie for well over a year. They had scenes that they had animated. The last thing we laid on them was we had to change Toothless.
And honestly, I agree. I mean, just look at this guy. He deserves to be roasted in the comment section. They had to change him, but that caused tons of problems.
We had to turn that new Toothless design around from concept to being fully animated in just like a month or two. They normally take about a year to go through this whole thing.
So they had to lock in. The craziest part is, with no budget and a deadline quickly approaching, the animators did the impossible. They changed his design, made him bigger, and even changed his color.
Toothless from the book is a little tiny dragon, so you can see the problem. If he's going to befriend a dragon, that dragon has to be the most terrifying dragon of all, not a little tiny dragon that needs to be protected.
And now you know why. The funniest part about making animation is what happens behind the scenes. I can't stop laughing, and you have to see this footage. Welcome to Animation Hustle, the place where we dive into the funny and untold stories behind your favorite animated movies and TV shows. Don't forget to subscribe and hit up the Discord, because today we're going real behind the scenes. Let's go back. For animation, real voice actors are expensive, so before they hire them, producers will have random artists at the studio record the lines to make sure the script is working. So before you get the lovable Oscar-winning Tom Hanks, you get Jeff the Animator. And as a result, things get weird. Now, sometimes the artists are really good. Like this guy's Gru impression is top tier.
That's the way that Gru joined the Vicious Six. The Vicious Six. The Vicious Six. That's the way Gru became the newest member of the Vicious Six. Oh, hi guys.
But sometimes it gets hilariously bootleg, especially for iconic characters. Like this is Shrek.
You're gonna love Far, Far Away. The place practically runs itself.
And SpongeBob.
Look, Gary, I think I'm flying. Jellyfish Fields, here I come.
And even Sandy.
Guys, it's me, Sandy Cheeks. This is what I look like up on the surface.
But the funniest example is from Trolls. That movie has tons of music, so not only do the storyboard artists have to do the acting, but they also have to do the singing. They should totally release an entire movie like this, because as you can imagine, it's hilarious.
And then she breathed it in. Don't stand there questioning if this is right or wrong. We need to use the trolls to help improve our songs. If only fame had an ivy, I would keep it near. How can we take it further? I've got your answer here.
Kung Fu Panda 4 might be DreamWorks' most creative movie ever. Here's the unique writing process that made the movie different than anything before it. The animation team wanted to shake things up with this new movie. Like for normal animated movies, the animators created a bunch of new characters and locations and animation techniques. But for this movie, the animators kind of wrote it too. Let me explain. In 2023, when the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild went on strike, the production team relied on the animators to help keep the production going. The director explained,
I pushed it to animation, and these guys stepped up, and all of them really got into the story.
This might seem crazy, but the director went on to explain the unique upside to this.
We were working out most of the film in the animation, which I think makes it a more creative film.
And now you know why. Kung Fu Panda 4 might be DreamWorks' most creative movie ever. Kung Fu Panda 4's animators hired Marvel's stunt team to make some of the best action sequences in the series. The series is known for great fight scenes, but for the newest movie, the animators wanted to take the Kung Fu to new heights. While they wanted to be creative with their fights, they also wanted to ground the combat in realism. So they brought in Hollywood's best stunt team to help. The director explains in an interview that,
"We hired some live-action stunt performers from the Marvel films," says Mitchell. "It was really fun for our animators to take a look at what a bunch of our stunt people did, and then know that we could take it even further with animation."
Now you know why. Kung Fu Panda 4's animators hired Marvel's stunt team to make some of the best action sequences in the series. Megamind 2 could have been even worse. It just dropped and the reviews aren't looking good. So a lot of people hate the story and think the animation looks bad. But this interview with the director explains why it looks like that. The movie was made not only on a TV budget, but also using a TV pipeline. Let me explain. In movies, you have a lot of time and money to work on the characters and the story. But in TV shows, they're made really fast. And this was a challenge because the director wanted to make everything look as cinematic and epic as possible. He said,
"There are things that we just can't do in the way that they would do them in a theatrical feature. For example, in a feature, you can custom light every single shot to make it look gorgeous. With TV, it's a little more limited. You set the lights once within a sequence, and for the most part, it stays that way, whether you want it to or not. The trick was picking our battles.
They had to really stretch their budget and be very careful how they spent the money.
And we tried to control and regulate the filming in a way you don't notice the limited shots. When it came to things like lifting the city up into the sky, we decided to show one shot of it taking off, some shots in the sky, and then 2 shots of it coming down. I mean, in a way, it's kind of how they used to make movies in the past. Effects have always been expensive, so you try to do it in as few spectacular shots as you can."
There are tons of differences between making an animated movie and a TV show. Luckily, the director understood these challenges. If it wasn't for his understanding of those differences, Megamind 2 could have been even worse. Megamind 2's budget was so low, they couldn't afford Will Ferrell. They also couldn't afford the original movie animators. DreamWorks replaced the entire cast with voiceover doubles, and even replaced the animators too. Since the trailer dropped, fans have been hating on the visuals of Megamind 2. The movie looks like this because they ended up outsourcing most of the animation production to studios in India and Canada, and the results have definitely disappointed fans. A studio called Doberman Pictures in Canada worked on everything from the designs to the animation, which, quick side note, I went to Google Doberman Pictures and got exactly what I searched for. I had to add animation to the search to actually find the studio's website. Anyway, a studio called 88 Pictures in India did the actual animation. By the way, if you want to improve your art or need help starting your animation career, check out the links in the description. Megamind 2 looks just like the original. Since the movie takes place days after the original film, the animation team wanted to make the new movie and show look just as good, but they didn't have the same budget. You might notice a lot of things look different, but Megamind himself looks exactly the same. In an interview with the director, he explains how they got the character of Megamind to look the same as he did before.
The original Megamind character model that was used in the feature, we used in the series as well. The same goes for Roxanne, the mayor, and any other repeated characters. We modified a few things, retexturing, re-rigging, but the basic models are all the same.
The animation supervisor went on to explain more.
Beyond that, there's texturing and lighting. We got really close to the original, though I think Megamind is a bit more blue. The colors we can include today are so much richer than they used to be.
After knowing all this, you can say that technically, Megamind 2 looks just like the original. So Megamind 2 is a sequel to an old franchise. It's cheap, its production was outsourced. It's basically everything wrong with the animation industry right now. Did you know the director of Shrek begged DreamWorks to fire him halfway through making the first movie?
I couldn't quit, but I asked to be fired.
Shrek was amazing, but making it was an absolute struggle. Welcome to Animation Hustle, the place where we dive into the funny and untold stories behind your favorite animated movies and TV shows. And don't forget to subscribe because today we're talking about Shrek. So real quick, this is Andrew Adamson. He directed Shrek, and even though it was a huge hit, he didn't want to work on it.
I actually turned it down for about 6 months because I didn't want to direct animation.
Remember this, it'll be important later. As production started, 3 major problems came up. First, they had problems with the script.
When I got involved in Shrek, I wasn't planning to write it, but we were just having some problems breaking the story through, and I started writing to communicate with the other writers, and that's really how I got into the writing.
Second, the tragic death of their lead actor made things worse.
One of the reasons it took so long is we'd actually been working on it for a long time and had animated about 20 minutes of the film with the actor Chris Farley, and he unfortunately passed away during production. And then we spent quite a long time before we found Mike Myers, which kind of changed the story when he came on board.
But the third problem came from Adamson himself.
I wanted to make an animated movie that felt like a live-action film, because really I wanted to make a live-action film. That was also one of the problems why it took so long, is there was kind of opposition to it, because we were breaking a lot of the rules of animation. And what that meant is we used music differently. The humor was a little bit more edgy and broad. We used the camera differently, and all of those things were kind of new. So for a long time, the studio didn't understand what we were doing. Halfway through Shrek, it was after Chris had died, before Mike had come on, we were having trouble figuring out what the story was. Studio didn't understand what we were doing. We were getting frustrated. I couldn't quit, but I said, could you please fire me? And they didn't.
This lady accidentally had one of the most successful careers in animation. This is Kathy Alturi, and her career is insane. Just check out her IMDb. She started out as a background painter at Disney on Little Mermaid and The Lion King. She left Disney for DreamWorks, which allowed her to level up her career even more. She was the art director for Prince of Egypt and Spirit, and eventually became the production designer for How to Train Your Dragon. With all of her success, it's crazy to think at the beginning she didn't even want to get in the animation industry.
I didn't want to go into animation. I still am trying to get out of it.
If she didn't even like cartoons, why did she do it? Well, way back in 2010, she explained, and her reason is super relatable.
I didn't want to go into animation. I just wanted a check at the end of the week. I mean, I'm honest. I was trained as an illustrator. I wanted to be a children's book illustrator, and I tried to do that, and it didn't work so well for me because I didn't have any money. Animation was the first thing that gave me a check at the end of every week. It's been a really good place for me to grow into my artistry and kind of who I am accidentally. So now I do my own art on the side because, like Ellen, I'm tired of looking at the computer all day long.
Kathy worked on some of the best animated movies, and her career is very inspiring. In this video, we're going to learn what she did as a production designer, how she tried to change the look of Toothless.
We brought it up. We said, just so you know, it looks kind of like Stitch, he said.
We're going to see how she hilariously roasts DreamWorks as a company.
We kind of went, really, DreamWorks? You're going to call it DreamWorks? Okay, fine.
And then also offer some really good advice for any female animators wanting to jump into the industry.
I kind of want to address in a nanosecond what it's like to be a woman.
So let's get into it.
My name's Kathy Alturi. I've been working in the animation industry for 27 or 28 years, something like that. I've never been fired. I've never been laid off. Yeah! It's great. I went to UCLA for a couple years. I went to Art Center after I figured out that I wanted to be a professional artist. I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. I just knew that I wanted to get paid money and I wanted to do art. There are some of you guys here who are artists like this. I never was one of them. I'm still not one of them. In animation, a production designer at DreamWorks anyway will start with the beginning of the film and will escort the visuals of the film all the way through to the final color timing. So we'll be involved with part of the with the early development work. We'll see to it that all the sets and the characters are designed and built well. Once the scenes are animated, they go into lighting. We oversee the lighting with the VFX soup and a DP if there's one, and then escort the whole thing through to the very end process. So it's a really overseeing of the visual look of the film from beginning to end. Everything that we do in terms of designing a film is the same thing that you would do designing a single image. So in an image, you've got an area of interest, you've got composition, you've got where you want to lead the eye. In a film, you have the same thing, but it's from the heart and it's from the emotion. So we want to lead your heart and we want to lead your emotions through the story that's being told. All the visual choices that we make have to support that emotional beat. So if something, for example, is a dramatic action chase sequence, you're going to find a lot of sharp edges and diagonals, a lot of contrast for visual activity, a lot of contrast in the music and the other supporting things that go on to support the chase sequence. If you have something else that's supposed to feel nurturing and safe and warm, it's going to have a whole different set of shape choices, color choices, and tone choices. My career trajectory has been more towards management and supervising people, which means that my skill shift has gone from doing art all day long to not doing art all day long. And that's huge for an artist, right? I mean, I'm trained as an artist and I started my career as a background painter, and now I do know, did you see any of my artwork up there? No, you didn't, because I'm responsible for the look of the film. But when that comes to my day-to-day job, what I did on Dragon was sat in meetings all day, every day. Intellectually really stimulating, and exercises a whole bunch of kind of artist paths, because I'm talking to artists all day long. I'm talking about what things should look like and why they need to feel this way and how to get the emotion across and how to get, why the specular highlight on this needs to be different from the specular highlight on that and why the color needs to move this way and that way. But in terms of physically doing stuff, I haven't been doing much, and that's been a real kind of a gift and a struggle for me. So what I've had to do to counteract that is to up the ante on my own personal art. So my personal art has gotten a lot stronger. My art skills have gotten a lot stronger and more more confident and more honest and more artistic than they ever were, because they used to be commercial art skills, and now they're, no, I'm not going to show them to anybody yet because they're really personal skills. So that's how I've dealt with that, is that my income is now derived from this, and my artistry, not so much looking at computer images on the screen, that has to come on the weekends and evenings or early morning or whenever I'm slinging the paint around. That's been my shift.
She has a really interesting perspective on the animation industry. What I like about her mindset is that she's able to understand the difference between being an artist creatively and an artist professionally. She found a way to get paid to make art, but also understands that her professional work is different from her creative work, and is more than happy to give the producers what they want. For example, when they were designing Toothless for How to Train Your Dragon, she had some concerns.
How many of you guys saw Lilo and Stitch? Okay, yes, this looks like Stitch. Chris knows it. We brought it up. We said, just so you know, it looks kind of like Stitch. He said, this is the dragon. I said, great. Just so you know, it looks like Stitch. He said, this is the dragon. Great. We'll take our check on Thursday and move on.
Sometimes in the animation industry, you have to put away your artistic ego for the sake of your job. Another example of this comes from the early days of working at DreamWorks.
I work at DreamWorks. That is the ugly... A word about working in a studio. That is, in my opinion, one of the ugliest logos ever designed. I'm not supposed to say that. I work at DreamWorks. I love working at DreamWorks. I've been there for 15 years. What happened with that thing is that when the studio was formed and when they came up with the whole cloud thing, and I don't know if that was Spielberg and Katzenberg or where the cloud thing came up and the boy with the fishing line, the name itself was, we kind of went, really, DreamWorks? You're going to call it DreamWorks? Okay, fine. When they came up with the with the letters and the words, they called me in because I'm a color expert, and they said, what do you think? And I said, I think it looks like you're going to make juvenile films. Are you making children's films? And they said, no, we're not going to make children's films, but they should appeal to kids. I said, well, to me, just that logo says you're going to be making kids' films. I said, I would recommend just a nice, whatever, all blue or all white or all whatever. And it went through all the levels of approval, and they said, no, this is exactly what Steven Spielberg wants. So, my apologies for the logo. I had nothing to do with it. I tried. Questions like what advice you have for upcoming talent, it's her list. I mean, my list is you have to be reliable, you have to show up on time, you have to be pleasant to work with, you have to do the best job you possibly can, you have to be pleasant and agreeable to work with. My God, that's the same list. That's my list, though.
Wait a minute, it's mine first.
No, that's
I'm
mine.
sorry.
That's mine. I kind of want to address in a nanosecond what it's like to be a woman, to be female, and what that's like. And for me, I feel it in terms of, it goes the same. It doesn't have to be a gender thing. It can be a cultural thing. It can be a temperament thing. You can be slightly more soft-spoken or shy. That's a more feminine quality. I'm soft-spoken, shy, female. I'm American, so I've got, a certain expectation that I'm going to be like this. But you see a lot of other cultures where, it's hard for people to express themselves. And that's where I feel the womanness of what I do. And the advice that I would give anybody who recognizes that quality in themselves is that you're going to be surrounded by a lot of big, loud, strong egomaniacs. And you're going to have to hold your own. And you're going to have to hold your own energetically. So it's an energy that you project, and it's a muscle that you can practice. So if you're used to being and trained to be sweet, submissive, and quiet, and you feel a little bit like you're getting bullied on or stepped on or pushed around a little bit, you can exercise the push-back muscle. You can exercise your posture. You can exercise the tone of your voice and how loudly you speak. And you have to learn new skills, like when I was growing up around the dinner table, we were taught that talking over someone is rude and impolite and it's not to be done. My professional success relies now on stepping on other people's sentences. Would you please talk?
And you cannot take
You know,
that
the one
home
thing
with
that I
you.
want to say
that practice
is that
becomes a problem.
taking it home. Oh, yeah. And then you can't take that home either. You can't be the same woman on the job as you can at home, ever. You have to figure out a way to strip down those work clothes and that work boss persona of confident, aggressive, I'm going to meet your energy with mine, I'm right, I'm the boss, I'm a strong creative artist, I have a vision with, great idea, what would you like for dinner? But we can, well, everybody can do it. It's not just we as women, we can do it, but everybody can do that. You learn how to chameleon your way into your life.
I love her sense of humor. I think her art is really inspirational, and her point of view is something that I hope more people can understand about working in animation. In the comments below, let me know if you think she was right about this logo situation. I never noticed it, but now that I look at it, yeah, the logo does look pretty childish. If you want to see more quick videos of animation inspiration, check out these, and I'll see you guys in the next one.